Hey everyone, welcome to my channel Facile Tech, where you will learn new programming languages, technologies, and all the best practices while using them to build your next project. This is the first tutorial of my Clean Code in Dart series, where I will teach you all the best practices to follow while programming in Dart. So today you will learn how to use immutable collections in Dart. Before we dive straight into coding, let me explain you what is immutable object, what are collections, and what are immutable collections. Now, what is an immutable object? An immutable object is an object whose state cannot be modified after it is created. This means that the immutable object guarantees us that it will behave in the same way during its whole lifetime. If we take a look at the string example, we can see that even when we use the replace all method to alter a substring in the object, the original string doesn't change. Instead, the replace all method returns a new string object with the changes, which can be stored in a new variable and used further. What are collections? Collections in Dart are a group of data structures which helps to store and process data efficiently. Collections in Dart can be classified as list, set, map. A list is an indexable collection of objects with a length, whereas a set is a collection of objects in which each object can occur only once. Map is a collection of key value pairs from which you can retrieve a value using its associated key. Since we have already learnt what is an immutable object and what are collections, let's now understand what are immutable collections. Simply put, collections that cannot be modified after they are created are immutable collections. For example, if you create an unmodified list with 3 elements, later you cannot change it. You cannot add, remove or clear it. Same goes with set and map. Advantages of having immutable collections. They are easy to reason about since their state remains same once created. That means if you create an immutable list, it is not going to change its state throughout the life cycle of its availability. No race condition when multiple async codes are accessing them. If you are trying to access it through multiple threads, it cannot be modified and you won't have any race conditions. Caching. Since the list cannot be modified, it can be cached and hence there can be an improvement in performance. Enough theory. Now let's find out how we can create immutable collections in Dart. Does Dart provide immutable collection by default? Let's find out. In this sample project, we will see two different approaches to creating immutable collections and two different approaches to creating unmodifiable collections. We will also understand what's the difference between unmodifiable and immutable while implementing each of them. In the first section, we will be creating unmodifiable collections using the Dart core and Dart collection libraries. Remember, both libraries are part of the Dart SDK. So let's get started. In this first section, I will implement the core list first and then follow up with the collections library. So as you can see, I have 3 methods here, that is core list, map and set. They will have the implementation of each of them. They will both consist of mutable and unmodifiable version. So let's start with core list first. I'll create a very basic list. I'm using the factory constructor that is off. And now let me add one element to it. And let's print it first to see what is the output. So to run this program, I'll run the command dart bin core underscore demo dot demo dot dot. As you can see, it consists of one element. Now let me try adding another element to it. And let's print it. As you can see, one more element got added after it was created. So one thing we can understand here is list is mutable by default in the core library. Now to create an unmodifiable version of it, let's see how it is done. Unmodifiable list so to create an unmodifiable version of a list, we will use the factory constructor named as unmodifiable. Now the syntax still remains the same, unmodifiable, and now let me print it. I'll explain you what is unmodifiable in just a second, but let me first run this program. As you can see, there is no change in the implementation and the storage, but now the difference comes here. I will add unmodifiable.add, and then I'll try to add an element to it, and then let's print it. So what do we expect? Whether the element will be added to the list or not. So let's find out. Okay, so as you can see, we got an exception when the element was getting added to the unmodifiable list. We got an unsupported operation saying that cannot add to an unmodifiable list. So the unmodifiable version is something like you have a mutable list which this unmodifiable version is trying to avoid adding any elements to it. So immutable is something which by default doesn't allow you to add elements to it. That is, it won't give you the methods to add or remove or clear the list. It always remains like you don't have those methods available for an immutable list. But for an unmodifiable list, you have access to such kind of methods. You have remove, you have clear, but all these operations are unsupported. So unmodifiable is something, the list is underneath, the list is mutable, but it's trying to avoid it being modified at runtime. So now let me also implement the map version. So let me just comment code list. Now let's implement map. So a basic mutable map.off. There you go. You have key 1 saying that it has a value mutable. Let's print it. Mutable, okay, it's map, and let's clear the terminal. Now let's execute the program. As you can see, it consists of a key and a value. Now let's try adding an element to it. Another key 2, and the value will be world. Let me print this and see whether the new pair has been added or not. So map is also mutable by default in Dart. It's not something very similar to Kotlin where we have immutable list and map by default. So now how we can create an unmodifiable version of map? Unmodifiable map.unmodifiable, which is key 1 unmodifiable, and now let me try adding an element to it. Put percent key 2 world, print it. Let's try executing this program. As you can see, you got a runtime exception, cannot modify unmodifiable map. So as you can, I will show you. As you can see here, this operation is not supported by an unmodifiable map. You can see it's throwing an unsupported exception. So immutable list or immutable map give you compile time safety, whereas unmodifiable map, unmodifiable list doesn't give you compile time safety. You still have access to these methods, and then you will get runtime exceptions saying that it cannot be modified. It's a disadvantage because you have to run the whole program and then complete the flow to reach this state, and then the program crashes. So that way you have to spend some time configuring and running the program, but in terms of immutable list and map, you get compile time safety while you are trying to add another element to an immutable list or map. You won't have access to these kind of methods. We will see how to do that in the upcoming section, but for now let's stick to this and let's see what set has to offer. Final set, we will create a mutable set set.off. Let me add one mutable, and now let me print it. Mutable set. Let me clear the terminal, and before I execute the program, let me comment this map in method execution. And as you can see, now set has one element in it. Let me try modifying this mutable set by adding another element to it. And now let's print it. As you can see, one more element got added to set, so set is also mutable by default. But here is the catch. Set doesn't have a factory constructor named as unmodifiable. You cannot create unmodifiable set using the core library provided by the Dart SDK. You only have mutable set with you. So this is the implementation of the core library, the collections in the core library. Now we are done with the core library implementations. Now let's jump to the Dart collections library and see what are the differences there. Let me close this Dart file and open up collection_demo.dart. We will use the collection library to implement unmodifiable list, map, and try to find out whether there is an unmodifiable set in the collection library. But before that, let's see the documentation of collection library. As you can see, they have clearly mentioned that classes and utilities that supplement the collections support in Dart core. So Dart core has the core functionality of collections for every Dart program. So as you can see down here, you have list, map, and then you have set. But what core library has done is added some utility, some supplement to this core functionality of Dart core. So you can see there are some additional implementation, that is linked list, linked hash set, hash map, list queue, and many other things. So let's go back to our terminal and let's get started by implementing the unmodified version of the list. I won't be, since we have seen collection is more of a supplement to the core library, we won't be creating the mutable versions because mutable version will still come from the core library. We will see the unmodifiable version using the collection library. So I will create an unmodifiable list, unmodifiable list view, and then we have to pass an iterable to it. As you can see, the moment I use this, Dart collection library has been imported. Now it expects us to pass an iterable. I will pass unmodifiable string. Sorry, it should be in curly braces. Now if I try adding an element to it, it still provides us the add method, and we can add another element to it. But let's find out whether it gets added to it or not. Let's try to run this program. .bin collection demo dot. As you can see, you got an exception saying the same thing, cannot add to an unmodifiable list. So even this throws you a runtime exception. It's not going to complain at the compile time. So what is the difference between a unmodifiable list view and list.unmodifiable? List.unmodifiable creates a brand new list for you. That means if you pass an iterable to list.unmodifiable, it will copy those elements to a brand new list, and then it won't allow to modify that list. But with unmodifiable list view, it consists of an iterable, that is a modifiable iterable. It can be modified, it's mutable, and then it's like a wrapper over it, which doesn't allow to add elements to that mutable source. It doesn't create a new list, but it holds the source data and doesn't allow any other elements to be added to it. So that is the difference between unmodifiable list view and list.unmodifiable. Now let's implement collection map. I will write unmodifiable map, unmodifiable map view. It takes a map, so I will pass key 1, value is unmodifiable, and now let me try adding another element to it. As you can see, you still have access to put if absent. That means we can expect a runtime exception in this. This doesn't give you any compile time safety, and you have to completely write the program and then execute it. I have commented collection list because we have already implemented that. Let me clear the terminal. Let me execute the program, and as you can see, you got an exception saying cannot modify unmodifiable map, and it's just taking a map and the source is not copied to a new map. It's just a wrapper over it, trying to avoid doing any operations on the source. That means adding, deleting, or clearing. Now let's see whether collection library supports unmodifiable set or not. If I type unmodifiable set, don't have it. You only have unmodifiable map, list, some other byte data, buffer, float 32 list view, but you don't have a set, unmodifiable set. So you still are stuck with a mutable set. Now in the next section, where we will be using two different libraries to implement immutable collections, I'll show you how we can write immutable collection which will give you compile time safety, and it's much better compared to the collection and the core library. In this second section, we will see two different approaches of building immutable collections. In the first approach, we will use build collection library. So if you go to pub.dev website and if you search build underscore collection, you can see there is a library built by the Dart team where they mention build collections are immutable collections using the builder pattern. So we will be using this to build immutable collections. So let's first add this to our project. Let me add this dependency. Let's go to pubspec.yaml, uncomment this, and let me add this. Now let me run pubget, okay. Now since the dependency has been added to the project, let's open up the Dart file name build underscore collection underscore Dart. Now you can see the same template. We will be first building list, immutable list, map, and then set. So let's get started with build collection list method. So to create a build list, they have mentioned that they use builder pattern to build the collection. So I will be showing you a very simple way of building an immutable list using the build collection library. So immutable list, where you will say build list dot off, which will take the iterable like previously, and now I will say immutable, and let me print it really quick. Let's see what is the output for this. Let me clear the terminal. Let me run dart bin slash build underscore collection underscore demo dot dart, and you can see there is no change in the representation of a list. It still consists of one element. Now the interesting part, let me try adding an element to it. As you can see, I don't have a method called add. This is what immutable collections are. They don't provide you the methods to modify an immutable list. So this is a compile time safety. You can also see there is nothing to delete, remove, or clear. So this is immutable list using build collection library. Now let's quickly implement the build map. Final immutable map build map. I'm using the factory constructor of, which takes the map key 1 immutable. Let me print this and let's see. Before running the program, let me comment build collection list. Let me execute the program. As you can see, it consists of a key and a value. No change in that. But now if I try to add another key and value to this map, I don't have that method. There is nothing called put if absent. So this is what an immutable map is. You don't have those methods to modify the map. And now the thing which we were waiting for, to create a immutable set. So let's see whether build collection provides us an immutable set or not. Build set. Okay, so in the previous section when we were using the core library and the collection library from the Dart SDK, there was no such factory constructor to create an unmodifiable set. We were always stuck with creating mutable set, but with the built collection library you can create an immutable set. You can add an element to it. You can print it, and let me just comment map, and let's execute the program again. So it consists of an element that is called immutable. Now let's try adding an element. As you can see, there is no method to add an element. This was a very quick example of how we can build immutable list, map and set using build underscore collection library. If we go back to the page where they have mentioned some example and there is a readme, there are many ways to build a list. You can see this is one of the ways you can build a list, a set and a map. You can also build like this. So they have given a lot of example, and it's a very good library since it's maintained by the Dart team. And they also mentioned that if you're using build underscore value in your project, it's a very good companion to use. So build underscore collection is a very good add-on when you use build underscore value already in your project. Now let's come back to the second approach that we will be using to build immutable collections. So in the second approach we will be using kt underscore dart library. Now this library has ported most of the Kotlin standard library functions to Dart. So in Kotlin there are many useful things like immutable list, map and set, and the person has ported those standard functions to Dart. You can see the kt list, kt map and kt set, they start with kt, that means Kotlin. Now we will be using this library to build immutable collections. You can go through the readme file to understand more about it. But in this video I will be showing how to create immutable collections using it. So let me just add it as a dependency to my project. Let's go to pubspec.yaml, and it's already been added. Let me just run pub-get to get all the dependencies. Yeah, it's been already added to the project. Now let me close this file and let me open kt underscore dart underscore demo. Now in this sample I will build the list, map and set using kt dart library. So let me build a list of, which is immutable. So this is the syntax to build a list. This syntax comes from Kotlin, Now you can also use this in Dart using kt underscore Dart library. And let me just print it really quick. Let me print this Dart bin slash kt underscore chart underscore demo dot. As you can see, it's a list consisting of one element. Now if I try to add another element, I don't have the method to modify this list. That's what immutable is all about. You cannot modify the list once it is created. You cannot remove, you cannot clear. So this is a very basic example of how you can create a list using immutable list using kt.library. Now let me create a map, an immutable map from, where I will pass a map key and a value. And now let me try adding another key to this another key and value, but I don't have the method available to modify this map. Let me just print it quickly. Let me comment kt dot list and let me execute the program again. You can see we have one key and a value. So now let's jump to the set implementation. Let's see whether kt dart provides us any immutable set or not. So set off, you can see we have set where we can pass immutable. Let me try adding the same element so that we know what is a set. Set only consists of distinct elements. Let me just print it really quick. Before running the program, let me comment the map method and let me run it. You can see it consists of one element, one unique element, that is immutable. Now if I try to add an element to it, I don't have the method available. Cannot modify the set at all. So this is the advantage of using immutable collections. You are guaranteed that at compile time or while writing the program, you don't have the methods available to accidentally add an element to a list. So this is a bigger advantage over unmodifiable collections, because you have to run the program, you have to complete the scenario, reach that particular point, and then it will crash to tell you that you cannot modify the list. That is time consuming, but this saves us a lot of time, and you are sure that no other programmers will be able to modify this while writing the program. So this is a better way of creating immutable collections. Now if we see, we have two options. One is build underscore collection library to build immutable collections, and then we have kt underscore dart library. Now it's up to you which one you would like to add to your project. If you are using build underscore value in your project, then I would say you should go with build underscore collection, and then because it complements the build underscore value library, so I would say you go with build underscore collection if you have build underscore value library added to your project. But if you are looking for something different, like you like the Kotlin syntax and you have some experience with Kotlin, then you can use this, and you have lot of functionality added to this, a lot of Kotlin functionality being ported to this library. So both are highly recommended. You can use any of them and it's really good. Now I hope I have cleared the idea of what are immutable collections, what are unmodifiable collections, what to use when you want to build an immutable collection, what do you need to use when you need to build an unmodifiable collection. I hope this video was very helpful to you guys. If you really like the video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button, and I will see you in the next video where I will be adding more content about some best practices in Dart and help you build better programs in Dart. Thank you. Have a great day.